is Christ's redemptive administration, fulfilling His will even amidst unjust trials. We are living in the world of lawsuits and trials. For example, aren't the presidents of South Korea and the United States all awaiting trials after being sued? The church is no different. It is noisy with endless lawsuits and trials, just like in the time of Jesus. Just like how they brought out unjust witnesses to accuse Jesus and accuse Him. And because of that, Jesus was brought all the way up to Pilate. Then what's the reason to accuse Jesus? They did it with one purpose. It's to bring down Jesus, who is the temple, and to destroy His will. They have used all of their resorts. In the last days, it will be the same. Satan will use accusations, lawsuits, and the voice of the public to tear down the temple. Dear saints, Jesus' crucifixion was not just a religious event, but it was the most unjust trial in the entire human history. In the center of the trial, there was Roman governor Pontius Pilate and sinless Jesus in the defendant's seat. Surprisingly, if you look closely in the Bible, we can find out that this trial was completely illegal in legal terms. But even more surprisingly, in that illegal trial, God has accomplished His plan for the salvation of humanity. Whatever judgment we get from the world, in God's perspective, He's still working on it and He's accomplishing it. Therefore, we will look into three things through this trial. First, is the sixth illegality of Pilate's trial. Common failures of Pilate and Judas Iscariot. 7 human sins revealed in the trial of the cross. Through this word, I pray that it'll be a time of grace where we deeply realize the appearance of first coming, events that will take place in second coming, and the meaning of the cross. What is the first coming? It's the shadow of the second coming. It will happen the same. Whatever happened in the first coming will happen the same to the second coming as well. Big point number 1, sixth illegality of Pilate's trial. Jesus' trial had a very serious problem, legally, secularly, and spiritually. First, there was no clear charge. Pilate says 3 times. In Luke chapter 23, verse 4, then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, I find no guilt in this man. So he said this first time. And in between he said it again. In chapter 23, verse 22, let us read together. And he said to them the third time, why, what evil has this man done? I have found him no guilt demanding death, therefore I will punish him and release him. Have you guys found it or not? We weren't able to find his charge. There was no charge, but the trial proceeded. Second point. The judgment was made under political pressure. Luke chapter 23, verse 21. But they kept on calling out, saying, crucify, crucify him. The crowds kept yelling, crucify him. The judgment was made not by right evidence, but it was done by the public's pressure. Dear saints, what I'm trying to say is the world must go to this way. They only care which side shouts louder. We all think the court is just, but it is not. Nothing has changed since then. Why? Because the world is controlled by devil and the darkness. Point number 3, he passed the responsibility onto someone else. Luke chapter 23, verse 7. And when he learned that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself also was in Jerusalem at that time. Pilate sends Jesus to Herod because it was causing him trouble. Realizing Jesus was from Galilee, he was thinking that Herod would take care of him if he sent him to him. So he sent him to Herod. However, Herod mocked him, beat him, and condemned him. And he sent Jesus back to Pilate like a volleyball. And the Bible says about this in Luke chapter 23, verse 12 as, Now Herod and Pilate became friends with one another that very day, for before they had been enemies with each other. Dear saints, those people who were enemies, they passed Jesus to each other because they want to kill him, but they didn't want to take responsibility of it. Point number 4. The trial continued even through a verdict of not guilty was called. Pilate already said, I found no guilt. However, the trial continued. This is a legal contradiction. So he ordered to kill Jesus in the trial. Point number 5. He released a sinner instead of an innocent. It was called a culture during that time, but in Luke chapter 23-25, and he released the men they were asking for who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, but he delivered Jesus to their will. The crowds were shouting, so Pilate releases Barabbas the rebel and hands Jesus over to the cross. But this event is a symbol of remarkable redemption. The sinner was released, and the innocent died in his place. This shows that even amidst unjust trial, Jesus accomplishes his will. Dear saints, the world will attack the believers in an evil way. And during that attack, God will always accomplish his will. Point number 6. He knew the truth, but he still overturned the verdict. Pilate knew Jesus was innocent. However, he gave up on that truth. And he listened to the world's voice. This is the most unjust verdict in the entire history. I'm saying this one more time, but the first coming is the shadow of the second coming. The world's judgment doesn't want the truth. They only want the public sentiment. Let us not forget about that. Big point number 2. Common failure of Pilate and Judas Iscariot. Common failures. There are two figures who take critical role in Jesus' trial. One is Roman governor Pontius Pilate, and the other is Jesus' disciple, Judas Iscariot. These two men were in a completely different positions, with different country, with different social hierarchy, but they have commonalities. Point one, they both knew Jesus was innocent. In Matthew chapter 27, verse 4, saying, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood," but they said, "What is that to us? See to that yourself." It is all revealed here. He knew Jesus was innocent, but he still sold Jesus. And those who paid Judas knew that Jesus was also innocent, but they said, "What is that to us? See that to yourself." They did all those things even though they knew. Both of them. Both knew Jesus was the truth. It's not that they didn't know, but they did all those even though they knew. Second point, both chose their own interests. Judas sold Jesus because of money. Pilate handed Jesus over to keep his powers. Humans often choose their interests over the truth and the word. They believe Judas was Jesus' disciple. He saw Jesus was going to die soon, and he was looking for his own interest. Point number 3. Both met a tragic ending. Judas Iscariot took his own life in despair, and Pilate is still remembered in history as the most unjust judge. Till today. And even to this day, through Apostles' Creed, he is still being taught as a person who caused Jesus to suffer and to be crucified. Dear saints, a life that turns away from the truth, it may seem beneficial, but in God's perspective, it ends in a tragedy. So I hope all of our precious saints will keep the word and become a saints who never turn away. Big point number 3. 7 human sins revealed in the trial of the cross. What is the root cause of Jesus' crucifixion? Human sins are clearly revealed in Jesus' trial. Number 1, we had envy. Jewish leaders, high priests, Pharisees, and the scribes envied Jesus' popularity. Those people who knew Jesus before, they all started to envy him after Jesus started his mission. Second, falsehood. They used false evidence and witnesses to accuse Jesus. They made up evidence and shouted towards Jesus. It was falsely accused with false witnesses. Number 3, hypocrisy. They said they served God more than anyone else, but they killed God's son. Number 4, fear. Pilate knew and he had a fear that he can't just kill an innocent man, but yet he did not fear Jesus or the truth, but he feared the people the most. For his own life, he did not fear Jesus, whom he should fear the most. Number 5, greed. Judas Iscariot sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And Pilate, he handed over for his political power. People killed Jesus with greed. Number 6, violence. In Matthew chapter 26, verse 67, they spat in his face and beat him with their fists, and others slapped him. They did this to Jesus, God's Son, which they can't even do it to a normal person. And mostly important, number 7, spiritual ignorance. Let us all read together in Matthew chapter 13, verse 13. Let us read. Let us begin. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because while seeing they do not see, and while hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. All of this came from spiritual ignorance. For 30 years, he traveled around, and for 3 years they shouted out, but those Israelites were not able to recognize Jesus. Dear saints, how many words did Jesus say in the cross? He says 7 words. He did that to perfection every sin of human, all 7 of those. In conclusion, Jesus' trial was the most unjust trial in legal terms and the most cruel event humanly. But people during that time were happy and rejoiced in him. We cannot forget about that. They were saying the trial was just. This was how it looked like in the first coming. Dear saints, this is the time where second coming is imminent. What we need to know is that worldly trials cannot be completely just. We need to know this. We cannot forget about this. And another thing that we cannot forget about is that we are the people who live in this world but do not belong to it, as we are the people of heaven. I pray that we all never forget about this and believe in this. There are a type of people who waver here and there, and if the crowd on one side shouts out, they join in and shout out together, and if the people on the other side shout something else, they follow and shout the same thing as them. Who did that? The Israelites, who called themselves God's people. In the first coming, God came towards to his own people, but their own people killed God. After all these atrocities, despite the unjust trials, God accomplished the redemption of humanity through that event. In Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5, but he was pierced through for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. God already prophesied and he was looking at it, but people only viewed this through their eyes and through their own judgment, so they were not able to recognize Jesus. The event of the cross is not a mere death, but it is an event of redemption. Dear saints, believers must not judge the truth for their own interest. just like Pilate and Judas Iscariot. Clinging to those who seems beneficial and rejecting them when they go against it. But even amidst of all this, God still accomplishes His will. We are currently in Lent. Jesus knew those people who shouted Hosanna would betray Him. And He knew that He was going to go against them and kill Him. But He still entered Jerusalem. And amidst all, He still accomplished everything. We must realize that this path, we only need to look at one thing. This is not the path that we can go while we are being wavering around. Therefore, I pray that all of our precious saints will not merely shout Hosanna with bewildered eyes and be confused by the people's outcry, but will instead look at the heart and the center of Jesus and walk the path of the cross, following the word till the very end and following the path until the very end. I pray this in Jesus' name.